Hello, this is the election special for 2014 for the sabbatical elections here at the University of Leicester Students' Union. We're very pleased at Leicester to be able to produce this programme and present to you the candidates that are standing in this election. Our hope has been to ensure that it's fair, so all the candidates have been invited to participate and most candidates did. All of the questions are going to be equal. Every one of them gets an opportunity to provide their answers, and ultimately at the end they can also present an aspect of their manifesto. Our role as Lust has been to produce an environment that is fair, that allows scrutiny because we are operating as broadcast journalists, and finally to create the kind of pressure that the media would provide anyone who's aspiring to go into public life. We are here to provide you with an environment to see that. We're not offering any opinions. That's your role. Now it's your choice for the elections, and we hope that you find it truly special. We have with us Michael Rubin, who's the current education officer of the Student Union and standing for the position of president. Michael, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks.
It's good to have you here with us.
Good to be here. I'm excited.
You're an incumbent, so we're very keen to talk to you.
Cool. That sounds ominous.
Before we get into the policies and obviously the numerous things that you want to tell everybody, we'd like to sort of get a bit of a background about yourself too. What degree did you do, and why did you choose Leicester?
Good question. So I studied politics and economics, so because I'm an incumbent now, but that was a couple of years ago now. But I chose Leicester. Not the best reason really. I applied for 5 universities and Leicester was the only one that said yes.
Oh, okay.
Not the most sort of glorious reason, but no, there was more to it than that. Like my course was quite specialised, so there weren't that many universities that did it. So I didn't have that big of a choice to begin with. But Leicester sort of jumped out at me as it wasn't too far from home, medium-sized university, very good in the league tables, but also sort of had a good focus on students. So I kind of had all the balance of the things I wanted. And then the 4 university said no. So it was kind of a mix of factors, but it worked out.
And where's home?
Home is near Brighton. So
near Brighton. Okay.
On the south coast, so.
Right.
Yeah, not too far away. It's about 3.5 hours. So.
Not flooded, is it?
I don't think so. With the election, I haven't actually rung home and seen how my family are doing. So hopefully it's not flooded. But last time I heard it was fine. So.
And is there a tradition in your family about coming to university, or siblings and cousins?
So my grandfather on my dad's side went to university. He was the first in his family, so he had sort of 5 or 6 siblings, and he was the first out of all of them to go to university. So he went to Glasgow University to study medicine, and then my dad didn't go to university, my mum didn't, and my younger brother's now applying. So kind of not the first in my sort of greater family, but my immediate family, I'm the first to go to university. So I'm quite proud about that. And
the degree that you've chosen, is it? Some people have conviction degrees because they're really passionate, or is it for you a career?
It's a kind of mix. So I was interested in politics. Politics is something that's really interested me, sort of why decisions are made, how decisions are made. So I knew I wanted to study politics because that was the interest. But I knew sort of politics by itself as a degree wasn't quite exactly what I wanted to do. I like to do multiple things at once. I don't like just focusing. So I knew I wanted to do a dual degree. And economics appealed to me because I quite like maths. It's a bit sad, but I enjoy numbers. So mixing the two was quite appealing, and I thought that would sort of help as well, because just having a politics degree perhaps isn't as sort of employable as having politics and economics. So kind of a combination of factors really.
Right. And have you thought of your next steps?
Oh God!
I know you're going for sabbatical officer here.
Yeah, hopefully get elected if things work out right. I'll spend another year in Leicester.
No, but beyond university.
Beyond university, there's a thing beyond university. Already in my 4th year, hopefully 5. No, I want to go travelling. It's a sort of standard. I don't really know what I want to do with my life, so I'm going to go travelling. But hopefully, if I spend another year here, save up some money, and then go travelling North and South America and do some work at the same time as travelling. So spend a few weeks working, and then a couple of months travelling, and then some more work. And then after that, I don't really know, so I should probably think about trying to decide what I want to do with my life at some point. But it seems too big and scary, so I'm avoiding it for the time being.
And some people who stand for sabbatical offices, one of their targets always is it's a stepping stone to lay the foundations for potentially a political career. Would you have that in mind?
Not really, no. I mean,
would this build your CV to do that kind of thing?
I don't think so. I mean, like being a sabbatical officer is an incredible opportunity, and like it does look amazing on your CV. So like the opportunities I've had this year and the opportunities I'd have as president, like will sort of give me so much experience and will enable me when I go outside, finally when I leave the comfort of a student union and university and go into the real world. It will give me lots of experience because I would have already done that. But to me, it's not about the CV, because realistically, I think sometimes people say sabbatical officers are careerists, they're just interested in their careers, but I did an economics degree. I could probably be working in an investment bank now and earning literally sort of 4 or 5 times what I'm doing now. So if I was a sort of career-driven person and motivated about making money and having a successful career, I don't think I'd be a sabbatical officer. It's not like you sort of walk out of a student union and go to Goldman Sachs and say, hi, I've been an education officer at a student union for a year, can I have a job? Like, it doesn't quite work like that. So to me, it's about helping students and sort of trying to make the student union a better place. That's what really motivates me. It's not thinking about, oh, this is going to help me later in life. It's something I love doing. I feel really passionate about it, and the opportunity to spend another year here would just be incredible.
So you've given us an idea of your background, where you're coming from, your psyche. What is it that you bring to this new post now that you're bidding to go for, the post of president? What is it in your character that's the single thing that you think that will make that work?
I think it's probably my drive. So in the past, before I got into this position, people would always accuse me of sort of aiming too high or being too ambitious. So when I first got involved in the student union and said it's outrageous that members of staff are paid less than a living wage, that we've got admin staff and cleaners that have to work multiple jobs to make ends meet, people are like, oh no, that's impossible, we can never do it, we can never afford it. But I was like, no, we can do it, we need to aim higher, we should do better in this. As a student union, we've got an obligation to help and support the people which make our organisation a reality. So I said, let's pay a living wage, and now it's happening. Last year when I ran for education officer, I stood up and said I want to persuade the university to introduce lecture recordings. So if you miss a lecture through no fault of your own, you shouldn't be punished. You should be able to go home and watch it and review it and use it for revision purposes. And people said, oh no, people stop going to lectures, it's impossible, it will never happen. But this year it's happened, and same with exam feedback. I said I want the university to introduce it. People said, no, you can't do that, it's impossible. But I kept pushing for it, and I spent a lot of time this year trying to persuade the university to do it, and it's happened. And with everything I do, I aim high. I don't apologise for that, because I think as a student union we've got to aim high, we've got to try and be the best. We won Student Union of the Year last year, but I don't think that should be the end. We constantly have to try and be better.
But if we have a situation,
everything I do.
But Michael, if we have a situation where you're now explaining to us what you've done as an education officer, you're not really talking about president. Now, I think there's an obvious reason for that, and that is because the real job is done by the other 3 officers. The president, really, what does the president do as a role? Figurehead, so-called, buck stops here. I mean, really? And why are you going for that now? You're actually doing, as you're saying to us, you're doing some great work as education. So why don't you carry on doing that? Why go for president?
See, I think this is what some people perhaps misunderstand about the role of president. I totally don't see it as just a figurehead. I don't see it as a person which goes to the fancy meals and gets wined and dined. A big part of the job, but that's not what I see it as. A big part of the job is obviously going to university committee meetings and being that chief spokesperson, which is obviously vitally important. And you want to make sure you've got someone who's got the experience of doing it already in that role. But to me, the reason I want to be president is because I want to use my experience as an education officer to help support the other 3 officers to get things done. So it's not just going to be me sort of floating above, issuing orders and just sort of going off to a fancy meetings and then coming back and just sort of putting my feet up and being like, job done, I've done my presidential duties. To me, president is actually a really hands-on role, and because I've got that experience of education over the last year, I can continue helping whoever's education officer next year. I've got a whole load of plans for how to improve the support the student union provides, so I can help the experience officer with that. And then when it comes to actually having a student union which listens to its members, which allows its members to get involved, I've got some great ideas of how to do that as well. So I want to help the engagement officer. So to me, president is the hands-on role, and I will be a president which doesn't just sort of sit aloof. I would constantly every day go into the office and have my projects, have my ideas, and push that forward. So yeah, I'd be very active.
Michael, that's giving us a feel really for where you're coming from. You will recall at the tail end of last year, there was a meeting of all the members, all members meeting.
It didn't go too well.
There was a big issue that came out of that, and that's what I'm going to talk to you about.
Sure.
Before I ask you some things about it, give me your take.
Yeah, it wasn't good, was it? It wasn't good. So last year the annual members meeting was absolutely awful. So it's in not this academic year, the year before, and we were like we've got to try and make it better, and it still wasn't very good. And I think it's a real shame, because what really frustrates me about it is the annual members meeting is where we're supposed to be able to listen to our members, where our members can actually say the student union should be doing X, Y, or Z, and it's an opportunity to let them know what we're doing. And it should be a moment where we can actually get stuff done, but it wasn't, and it was in fact a complete opposite. Not only did we not hear what issues people have, and we didn't have a real opportunity to let people know what our plans were for a year, we actually put people off a student union. We gave people a horrible image of a student union. We looked bureaucratic, we looked like we didn't know what we were doing, and it's the exact opposite of what we should be. The annual members meeting should be an opportunity to listen to our members, to listen to sports clubs, to listen to societies, find out what they want us to be doing, and then give us a chance to reflect on that. But it just wasn't, and I think it's a real shame, and I think next year we absolutely have to have a real look at the annual members meeting and question we know what it's there for, but it's not currently fit for purpose. So we need to have a real examination of that and try and make it work, because it is really important.
Okay, so the elections have happened.
Elections have happened.
You're now president.
Also, two weeks of my life have been saved, and countless sleepless nights.
Absolutely, and you now have to plan the all members meeting. You're chairing the executive. Mm-hmm. What are you going to do? What are you now going to do to make that meeting completely different to the way you've just explained to us?
I think I would open it up. So what we had last year, we had an agenda, and generally my view is you sometimes need agendas for meetings to have structure, but for the annual members meeting, I would want to use it as an opportunity to listen to members, and for the executive to update the members about what's been happening with the student union, and then actually give them a real say in what we're doing. So actually, if we present a budget, there shouldn't be a vote on whether we exceed a budget. Like, it's just total, it just doesn't make any sense. Like, if we're going to have a vote about a budget, it has to be meaningful, and we shouldn't just present a budget. We should actually have a discussion about what we're prioritising as a student union, what we're spending money on, and why we're doing it. So I'd want a meaningful discussion about where a student union's going, because I think it's absolutely vital that conversation isn't just had at union council. I think we've got to involve sports clubs and societies and welfare groups and everyone that has an interest in the student union. We've got to involve them in that conversation. And I just listened to them. I think it's a tremendous opportunity for a listening exercise to actually hear what student groups want from a student union, and to give us an opportunity to act upon that, and then conversely to let them know what we've currently got planned for a year, and to give them a chance to give us some feedback on whether that's the right direction they'd like to see us going. And I'd hope that they would be pleased with some things we've got planned. So some things I want to do next year hopefully would be pleased.
But Michael, you're talking to me about I'm going to listen, I'm going to listen, I'm going to listen. Many politicians say I'm going to listen. What I'm not hearing from you is what are you specifically going to do? One of the biggest issues that came out of the members' meeting wasn't so much the vote of abstention, but was the fact that the members that sat at the meeting felt that they had influence, they had power to exercise a vote. The reality is, you guys, the sabbatical officers, had no power over that budget. That it was a done and dusted deal.
Yeah.
So members were frustrated. The reason they abstained was that they didn't even want to get involved in the process, where they actually have no influence at all. Now, you're not saying that to me, though. You're not saying to me, well, I'm going to sort that out. We are going to have some power. Are we going to have power?
No, that's exactly what I'm saying. Like, what I'm saying is if you're going to give people a power to vote on a budget, it has to be a meaningful vote, and it has to be a meaningful conversation. Just presenting a budget which, in all, like the budgeting process is currently going on now, and it gets sent off to university in April. So presenting it to an annual members meeting in October, like, you can't have a meaningful conversation because like, the money was already being spent. So I think there definitely is space in that meeting to discuss the budget, but it shouldn't be about a budget which was already signed off last year, because you can't have a conversation if the money's already been spent. It doesn't make any sense at all. So if we want to have those meaningful conversations, we have to make sure they're actually meaningful. You can't talk about a budget if the money's already being spent.
But when are you going to tell? When are sabbatical officers going to tell the members, the students, you have no power? You're just not being straight with people. I mean, not you. I mean, you were at the top table. You were there.
But I think your point there is that at the moment students don't feel like they have power in the student union, which I can completely see where they see that. So they look at union council and they see 60 people that come along. It's not even 60 people because half the people don't turn up. They see people that come along week in, week out, and they have a lot of discussions which aren't really relevant to students, and these are the people which make the decisions and pass that policy, and it's no wonder people don't feel like they have power. So that was one of the things I really want to do next year, is actually make sure students feel like they can influence things. So we've got Change Or Explain It. I want to make sure that's online.
No, before we go there, look at the issue around the fact that there's no power, because it's the full-time officials, not the 4 sabbatical officers. You're representatives of the students. But the people that really run it are the chief executive and the officers, not you.
No, that's not true.
But that was the impression that came out.
Yeah, and
that this budget is a done deal, it's done and dusted. Therefore, I don't know why you're voting on it.
The problem with that was the timing. So we do listen to students when it comes to the budget. So one of the things we push for this year is to actually make sure there's a conversation about what our priorities should be leading up to the budget for next year. The trouble with the annual members meeting, at least when it's in October, November time, is the budget's already passed. So it wasn't like that was an attempt to sort of annoy people or deflect attention. It was just the timing of it meant that you couldn't have an actual conversation about it because the budget was already passed. So maybe we need to look at when we have a meeting and try and think of a time which allows for a meaningful conversation.
Let me take you somewhere else then.
Okay, away from the annual members meeting.
Let me take you somewhere else. One of the biggest issues for the 20,000 students that we have is that the student union is not something they identify with. The student union is aloof. To much of an extent, it's a clique or a bunch of cliques. It's people that know each other. The extension of their authority is actually as far as the Facebook pages that they're on. So surely you've perpetuated, through being the education officer, through being a sabbatical officer, you're a part of that process. And by being president, seeking to be president, surely aren't you just representing a clique?
Not at all, not at all. So one of my big things which I'm talking about in my manifesto is actually making sure we've got a student union for students, because I think the analysis you just gave, I think you can't fault you on that. So over the last week I've been going around with a little whiteboard and talking to students and asking them what issues they've got, what they'd like to see changed about their student union. And one thing that came up time and time again was the cost of food on campus, and the cost of food in Norwich and in the student union particularly. And so many students were just saying, I can't afford to eat lunch, it's cost me £5 to get a panini and a cup of coffee. Like, I came to university, I didn't come to buy a hummus and falafel wrap. Like, people want actual decent food, and they want it for a decent price. So one of my big promises I'm making this election is, if elected, I'll introduce a £2 meal deal. Like, no ifs, no buts. I will allow students to get lunch for £2 in the student union. And doing things like that will get students back in, because if students don't want to come into a student union, then we've already lost the battle. So if people feel the student union's for them, if they feel it's a place where they can come and be at home, and if they feel it's a place where they can come and get lunch and meet their friends, then that's not the be all and end all, but we're starting to correct some of the problems we've got.
So tell me then, if we, I mean, that's some straight proposals. Give me one thing out of your manifesto that you haven't already mentioned that you think epitomises your candidature.
One thing that epitomises my candidature is difficult. And
I'm sure you've got many.
Yeah,
we know you've got many.
I've got many.
But we're asking you to go through and just sort of give us one thing that you can leave with people who are watching.
One of my big, I'm not sure whether I'd say it epitomises my candidature, but one thing which I'm really keen to push, and I'm the only candidate talking about this, is an idea of having a student union loyalty card. So that's about saying that students every single day support a student union. So they come in and buy food in Norwich, or maybe they don't because it's too expensive, but some do at least. They come in and spend at Starbucks, they go to the O2 Academy, they're part of sports and societies, and they constantly give us their loyalty. But we don't give anything back. So I want to introduce a student union loyalty card. So if you spend at Starbucks, if you go buy your morning coffee, you'll build up some points, and then when it comes to going to Shebang on a Friday, we'll be able to give you some money off a ticket or a free drink, or some way of rewarding your loyalty. And that's my big promise. I've put it as number 1 on my manifesto, because I think it's something student union should be doing to say to students, look, it's a student-led organisation, it's an organisation for you, and we want to reward you when you help us. Okay,
great. Well, thank you very much for your time. That's very good of you. On behalf of the LUST team, we'd like to wish you all the best for the election.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the time. I appreciate it.
Welcome back to election 2014. We are covering the sabbatical elections, and I have with me today Alistair Robinson, who's standing for the position of president to the student union, and we're very pleased that he's joined us today.
I'm pleased to be here.
Good. Alistair, before we get into the issues and the student union and the politics. Let's sort of get a bit of a background on you as well, because I think people are interested. So, what got you to Leicester and your degree, and why are you doing the degree?
Okay, what got me to Leicester? Well, I came to Leicester through clearing. It wasn't my first choice at all.
Okay.
I was supposed to either go to the University of Birmingham or Sheffield, but I came here in 2008. I was ill for a couple of years at least during my degree, so I've took quite a considerable amount of time out. But I've been working full time in the student union during that, and I'm still here.
Right.
Yeah.
And why did you choose Leicester?
Why choose Leicester? Well, it's far enough away from Nottingham to get away from my mum.
Okay.
Not too far if it all goes wrong. Yeah.
Okay. So Nottingham's home.
Yeah.
Oh, it's still East Midlands.
Yeah.
It's not too bad. Okay, and the degree?
Geography. Well, it's BA Geography, so it's not. It's more interesting. Maybe that's a bit of taste. I don't know. It's not mountains and rivers. It's all cities, people, populations, a bit of politics, well, quite a lot of politics.
And your involvement, obviously, in the student union, union council, it has been extensive over the time.
Yeah.
But tell me, what has got you to run for a sabbatical post?
Okay. Well, obviously, being here for such a long time has given me quite a lot of insight into the way things have been run, are run, and I've spent a lot of time visiting other universities as well, because you can't spend your time in university as a student for 6 years without having friends at other unis. So I have ideas about how things work, the way things work, and what students really need, and I'd like to help out Leicester.
Okay. So, what would you say is a single thing in your makeup as a person that you want to portray? We want to understand from you that actually, you bring that thing to the table as far as the role is concerned.
Okay. Well, a lot of experience.
In what area? In what area is your experience?
In the everyday running of the student union.
Okay.
The relationship that the student union can have with the university, and where that fits into in general, student issues in wider society.
So strategy moving forward. This is where
definitely.
you have specific views on on what that would be. Okay. Let's look at the position that you're standing for. You're standing for president.
Yeah.
If we look at the role out there, I'm looking at the 20,000 students now.
Yeah.
Their perception of the student union, the key role for them that they can see is that of president, because that's the other officer positions aren't as clear. But if we look at it, we know that a lot of the work really gets done within those three other officer positions. There's a whole load of work, and actually the president's role is a figurehead, is someone who brushes shoulders with the VC and has dinners and has a good time. So if you were really serious about moving forward and making changes, then why are you standing for president?
Well, this isn't DMU, this is Leicester, and at the same time I will have to brush shoulders with the VC, but I'm going to make sure I'm not in his pocket. We were at the presidential hustings at DMU this last week, and it was chaired by the VC there, but the student union should be a union for students, to look out for students' interests, instead of it just being a body which does exactly what the management wants, just an extra arm of university management. It shouldn't be that at all. It's there to look out solely for the students' interests, and that's what I would do while liaising with the upper management of the universities and wider area. Yeah.
Okay, so you do enjoy the brushing shoulders bit then?
Wow. Do what you gotta do.
But what's the actual job of president? I mean, what job are you going to actually be delivering? It's the three other officers that are going to be doing that. So what do you see? What's your vision? Because you haven't previously served as president. You're coming into it new, but obviously you have ideas. What's the actual job going to be then? Because I don't see a job.
You don't see a
No,
job,
I don't see
a need for a president of a student union?
Well, yeah, for the purposes of
Come on.
swanning around and having a great time and having the lunches, absolutely there's a role. But from what you've said or what you're made up of, that doesn't sound like what you are. You're a person that gets the job done. That's what you said.
I am a person that gets the job
Then
done.
why go for president?
Well, why go for president? Well, I'm also good at liaising with people. I am good at that. I have quite a proven track record of talking to people at functions and managing to work a way into a negotiating position. Being able to do that, and I think I'd be good at that. Also, the job of president is also to make sure that what is passed through union council is enacted by the student union, and that's something which the SU's come into criticism this year for maybe not doing as much as usual. So I'd be hot on that.
Okay.
And hopefully be able to get a larger number of students interested in student politics as well.
Alistair, so you've given us a bit of a flavour for where you're coming from and some of your key convictions. Tell me about a place I'm going to take you now, which is last year, last academic year.
All right.
Sorry, last calendar year, not academic year, where we had the all members meeting.
Yeah.
I hope you recall that.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
At the all members meeting, there was several issues that came up, but there's one significant issue that took place. It's quite a historical one, actually.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you some questions about that. But before I do, I'd like you to give us a bit of your take on it.
I'm not sure.
I'm giving you a bit of license here.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Am I actually allowed to talk about this? Yes, you.
No, we're going to talk about SU. We're going to talk about. I mean, I'll tell you what we're going to talk about. Funding is the issue, the accounts that were presented. So I'd like to get your take on it first.
Okay.
And then I've got some questions to ask you.
All right then. Well, in 2011, February 2011, a number of staff were made redundant from the student union. That's because it's come into financial trouble after the building had been refurbished. Large parts of the building were completely built out of nothing. And unfortunately, after that, when there was a new restaurant, we had a smaller restaurant downstairs, a Scholar. A bit too much was spent on that, and managers hadn't. I've talked to Qamar about this. Managers hadn't actually managed to. They just hadn't noticed how much they spent, and they were in trouble financially. And they made cuts to staff and funding to a lot of the sports and societies, and that is something that I really hope to not have happen again.
So accounts were presented, vote was taken.
Yeah.
What are your views about how that was presented and managed?
I think, well, we've talked about the finances of the SU and how they aren't as clear as they could be. But then again, a lot of the time students aren't going to be interested in the very details. But I think when it is important like that, and it does have a very real effect on their student experience, especially, whether that's with a sports club or a society, then they do deserve to know why it happened, and how it can't happen again.
Okay, so the abstentions won it that night, and we have a situation where that evening onwards, you are now standing for election to a significant position. I'll agree with you.
Yeah.
And therefore, once elected, you'll be chairing an executive meeting that potentially is going to be arranging their next all-members meeting.
Yeah.
So what are you now going to do to make sure that that doesn't happen again?
Well, I'll make sure that in the summer, whenever it's encouraged, we decide on the budget, when they're setting the budget, and they're going to be laying out how to present it to students in the all-members meeting, that it's done in a much more clear way. And yeah, what were they voting on? Were they voting on? There was a lot of confusion. People were having to vote on whether they'd seen the screen. I think that's what it was.
But moving on from the meeting now, you have an opportunity now to say, heck, I'm president now. This is how it's going to be. So how is it going to be?
I don't want to be dictating. I'm not
No,
gonna be
but
some big
we
bad
are
dictator at the top.
But people who are going to be watching this
Yeah.
are going to want to know a clear view from you as to what would you do that would be different.
Okay, well,
Other than I wouldn't provide more information.
Yeah. In the all members meeting.
So you're now arranging the all members meeting.
Yeah.
You and the other sabbatical officers, right?
Yeah.
So you're now sitting there. You're leading it. So here's my priorities for what this all member meeting is all about. What would that be? What would you do?
Well, in the all members meeting, I'd lay out a lot more clearly how the finances, what it is that they're voting on.
Okay.
I probably wouldn't ask them to vote on whether they'd seen the screen or not. I'd present it and ask for representatives from societies and sports to have their input into what they think they need, what we can do, what is feasible.
At the meeting?
Well, we'd ask them to get involved in that side of things.
Okay.
Yeah.
What, before the meeting?
We had a recent financial strategic planning meeting. I wasn't able to attend, unfortunately, but yeah, I'd definitely be interested in arranging to have that with another one of those with members of the all members.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Fine. So that's that. Let me take you somewhere else now.
Okay.
The somewhere else is that out in the 20,000 students that we have, their view of the student union is distinctly different to those that are probably actively involved in the union council and the sabbatical officers, etc.
Yeah.
The view is, and I'm going to place this right before you. The greatest criticism is that the student union largely is a clique. It's a few people, well, not a few, a considerable number, but they largely know each other.
Yeah.
It's very political, lots of factions, lots of problems, and actually not particularly relevant to the bigger body of students.
Yeah.
On the basis that you're now standing for election, and on the basis that you obviously want to get elected to president, once elected, surely you're just going to be the president of a clique.
Okay.
What do you say to that?
Well, I say we need to make it relevant to students. Why isn't it relevant to the majority of students at the moment? Does the USU take care of things that matter to students really, or has it ignored the issues that are facing most students after they graduate? At the moment, I'd argue that for the most part, yes, it has been ignoring some of the biggest student issues that we face at the moment.
Do you recognise that?
I recognise that, definitely, and that is a big part of my manifesto, is that I want to bring issues that are relevant to all students, and students are in uproar around the country about certain things that are happening with...
Give me an example of what you do, because at the moment you're being fairly vague to me about I would sort stuff out. What's the stuff?
Okay, one specific thing is the student loan sell-off.
Right.
Now in November, or it might be in October, the student loans from before 1998 were sold for £160 million. They were worth £900 million. These are outstanding debts that are still to be collected by the government, and they're sold to a private firm. They're currently scheduling the selling off of our student loans for 2015. And David Willits, the university minister, sorry, I'm going to have to get my...
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. He made it clear to a select committee that the loans, they're going to have to remove the cap on those loans, that this is only the beginning. So interest rates will rise, and what you're seeing is a retrospective hike in tuition fees. That is something that a lot of students around the country care about and have been protesting about. And we've not heard anything in Leicester. The student union haven't been telling the students exactly what's going on at all. It's been a lot of smaller issues, issues that do matter, of course, but the big one that really affects every single student, and I think a lot of students that I've talked to really care about, is this.
That's good, because that's what we wanted to get from you, was a manifested commitment on that part. Thank you very much for your time. As usual, we run out, but we would, on behalf of the team, wish you all the best for your election.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Thank you.